Hello everybody, welcome to the Business and Investing panel at the Game Days conference. Happy to be back after 1 year. Last year was super interesting. We have a lot of topics to cover, so let's just jump straight in. My name is Jaro Luptak from Knowledge Ventures, and I'll be hosting this panel. We have a very diverse panel of speakers today, each and every one of them with a slightly different model of how they work with game developers. And that's why I would like to start off the discussion with a quick round of introductions and sort of like what I like to call a reverse pitch session. So there'll be a lot of game developers watching the stream, I assume. So I think you should use this opportunity to describe your company, your model, what makes it different, what kind of projects you're looking for, what's your sweet spot in terms of investing and projects you like to work with, and why are you the best partner for them. So floor is yours. I think we should start with Peter, who is the local kind of the host of the conference. So the floor is yours, Peter.
Hey everyone, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I am Peter. I am from Grindstone and Games Farm. I'm head of development and CEO of both companies. Games Farm is a developer for PC and console games. We focus on the RPG games, and we also have a Grindstone, which is kind of publishing investment production company. And we support the developers to kind of create not only innovative titles, but we support them also with the production, various kind of production which they need. Our last game was recently announced together with our partner Quali, which is Die by the Blade. And our sweet kind of investment range is like usually up to $500,000, and we are looking for various games which have a lot of potential, obviously, but it's always difficult to judge. But especially like we are looking more into the long-term plans, and so we are more looking into the teams and the potential of the teams rather than the titles itself, because we believe in the people, and that's I think the most important value. So thank you.
All right, maybe we can continue with Simon to stay on the publishing side.
Hello, my name is Simon Smith, and I'm a senior game scout at Team17, based here in the UK. And we have 3 sites in the UK. We have a head office and publishing and marketing in Nottingham, which is in the middle of the UK. I'm in Manchester, which is in the northwest of the UK, which is a development studio, and also I get to work out of there. It's my hometown. And we have Wakefield, which is in the east of the UK, which is a development studio like Manchester. So we have 200 developers in-house who are making games. Some of them are making Overcooked, some of them are making Worms, but many of them are there to help support developers in making their games, whether that be console conversions or development support or et cetera, we can really help people make the games. We're one of the few publishers in the world that has an internal development capability. Team17's worth around $2 billion now, which is nice. So we have quite a big investment behind us to be able to put into games. We're looking for games, anything from small indie games to bigger indie games, into the millions. So we have quite a wide range of what we do. And for us, it's all about return on investment. We are creative people and we want to work with creative people. But we're still a commercial company, and we still want to make games that get into lots of people's hands. So lots of people play them. And if anyone wants to submit a game to Team17, go to the Team17 website. There's a big submit button on the website. Click the button, give us the information about your game. My team, the Greenlight team, the game scouting team, will look at it. We see every email that comes in. We look at every game that is pitched to us.
Right, that was a strong pitch. Let's continue with Benoit.
Okay, hello everybody, nice to talk to you today. So I'm the head of publishing at NACON. We are proud to define ourselves as being a meat publisher. So we are definitely working in the AA segment, which in our mind is definitely not linked to a reference of quality, saying that talking about AAA quality is as stupid as saying that there is a blockbuster movie quality or a bestseller book quality. So we are publishing PC and console games in the so-said AA segment, which is, in our mind, an expert size of market. We are talking to players that do have a big passion for off-road racing, and then we are doing WRC, the World Rally Championship official simulation. We are talking to gamers that do have a passion for a specific license, the World of Darkness, for instance, and we are doing werewolf and vampire, this universe. We are talking to players that have a passion for specific game mechanics, and we have two games that are Rogue Lords and Rock Book that are deck builders, roguelikes deck builders in this specific genre, etc., etc. So in the past 6 or 7 years, we grew a lot in this segment of the market. We bought 14 studios, so we now have 600 developers working exclusively for NACON. We do publish between 12 to 16 games per year. If you want to contact me to propose the concept that you have, I don't have a super nice button in my website, just like Team17. Just pitch me on LinkedIn, saying this is very easy to find me. Just contact me there. I will be very happy to evaluate the proposal that you have. We have, in terms of geographical footprints, studios from Montreal to Melbourne in Australia. So this is quite wide. And I'll be very happy to meet maybe some of you very soon during one of the first on-site event in Košice.
Looking forward to that. Let's continue with Jakub.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Jakub. I'm from a growth partner technology company, combination of many things, Superscale. We are essentially working with some of the top 10 publishers and the game companies in the mobile free-to-play space. And recently, we've been talking a lot about how to work with NFTs in games properly, or what are the boundaries there between like scam and actual good use of this technology for the further growth of this market. So, me personally, I've been mostly a game analyst in my life, and I managed more than like 150 games in our portfolio, and their global launches and growth, and sometimes not growth journeys in last 8 years.
Are you also providing funding for game developers, or it's more like a service?
No. So there are two parts. One is like more like a service part. So we either help with self-publishing, or we support large publishers with growing their published games, or game companies helping to grow. And the second part is more technological part, where we essentially combine like a data tracking and analytics stack with machine learning capabilities for monetization in free-to-play games.
Excellent. All right, let's continue with Bertrand.
Hello guys,
Right.
thanks for having me today. I'm Bertrand, one of the two partners at Games here. We're a private investment fund. So Michael and I sold our previous company in 2015 for 306 million euro. We were involved in digital distribution of games and monetization of games. So if you played games like World of Warcraft and FIFA, we were selling games in those currencies. In those games, we were selling currencies in those games. Sorry, I had too much coffee this afternoon. And now we reinvest in PC console games exclusively, so not mobiles. And we do project financing. So we invest in projects that need to wrap up their development funding and then go work with a publisher, or we work with teams who are solid enough to go with the self-publishing route and say, you know, I just need cash. I got my business partners for publishing, so that works with us too. And then at latter stages, if we are happy with the project financing we did with a team, we can then transform this into an equity investment if we go on the long haul. So that's us.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Martin.
Hi guys, my name is Martin. Yeah, so very interesting group because I'm pretty much very normal VC and very normal for basically finance providers. So yes. So for me, my history, I will start. I'm pretty much developer. I did some computer vision, did some mathematics and graphics. I was very bad. I'm really back-end person with the math. Nevertheless, I 4 years ago I set up the VC fund operating in Czech Republic, which we look on the games for many times, but for classical VC model, it's really not sustainable. And I'm now launching a new project, which is financing a project based on the revenue-based finance, which is basically royalty financing, so we can support the team or the development. We, in this case, we are more like money and the support from the financial point of view, not helping the publisher, but we can help, work with the Grindstone and other publishers where the projects to finance. Yeah.
Do you have any investments in the gaming space?
Maybe no. I spoke with few gaming studios for last 2 or 3 years. But the problem is, like in Nation One, we are purely equity investor, and unfortunately, that model cannot be leveraged as much. That they also create a new project which is much more flexible towards the intents, which much more fitting to the gaming set, where the company really can produce and we can supporting the projects as they goes.
Mm-hmm. All right, so. Thank you for the round of intros. I think very informative. And one question that comes to my mind after this round of intros is that I think, Simon, you mentioned return on investment as a kind of selection criteria for picking up the projects. And what I'd like to ask you about, kind of reflect on the past year and tell me what you see currently in your project pipeline. So. Basically projects looking for a cooperation with your companies. What do you see there as a kind of a trend, if anything, compared to previous years? And kind of a follow-up question to that is, what would you like to see there more in your pipeline? So what is the kind of your thinking? What would you like to see, and maybe it's not there yet? Maybe Simon, you like to start?
I'm not sure about trends, but I think you can have a good idea of trends yourself if you look at anything, if you look at what's being released and sort of what games have been successful. So we've seen a lot of pitches for card battle games, for example. So after the success of Slay the Spire, there's been a lot of pitches for card battle games. Another one would be after the success of the social deduction genre. So we're getting a lot of games at this sort of, you go and you have to, like Werewolf, as in Werewolf, the party game, as opposed to Werewolf, the killing, running around and killing people game. Social deduction games, which I think is now a genre. We've seen a lot of those. And I think if there's one big game, like a couple of years ago, it would probably be something like after Dead Cells. So Dead Cells, we suddenly get a lot of really beautiful Metroidvanias. You tend to get a big game, and then lots of people pitch games like that. And anything that they pitch, it can be in the same genre, that's okay. But it needs to have, why do I want to buy this new game? It needs to have some sort of unique selling point. It doesn't have, it could be the graphics, it could be the sound, it could be even the story, but it has to have something that makes it different to the previous games, or why would I buy the new game? What is that thing that makes it different? Hollow Knight, it's a very good game. Is the gameplay massively innovative? It's somewhat innovative, yes, but the graphics and the art style make it stand out. And it's just a very good game anyway, and the graphics make it stand out. So that sets it apart from lots of platform games that have come before it. Dead Cells, one of my favorite games. I think the graphics on that and the game design on that is an amazing achievement, and that makes it addictive to play all the way through. So that's great. But yeah, it has to have at least one thing that stands out and makes it different. That's very important.
Okay, maybe Benoit would like to reflect on that.
sure. I think that maybe to define our job, my job as a publisher, when it comes to making an evaluation of a new concept and building a portfolio, because mainly this is not only one concept that we are working on, this is a bunch of concepts that will define the catalog for 1 year and make the lineup. So we're basically, I think about my job as being a risk assessment job. I got to make sure that every year the portfolio that I will propose to the market will be profitable, first of all, and will make sense to define the identity of the company that we want to be as a publisher on the market for the years to come. So when we are evaluating, assessing a risk, which is a creative risk, usually when we get a proposal, this is either when this is one of our internal studio, just a sheet of paper or just a few words, and when it is an external studio, most of the time kind of prototype. We both look into the mirror and we look into the front window. Looking into the mirror is what is the track record that this genre has been making on the market in the past, but this is just the past. And this is where most of the time we do assess the risk. Is there an audience for that kind of game mechanic? Simon mentioned the deck builder. We've been publishing too, because just like you at Team17, we've been receiving a lot of proposals for that. But because there has been an audience for that has been proven by big successes in this trend. And looking into the front window is, okay, we have this track record for the genre, for this game mechanic that proved to be profitable because there are a bunch of players that do like it, obviously. And they are this amount. But what we will propose next, what will be the side step, what difference, what creative proposal that is not exactly the same as what has been done before will we make, because this is all about it. We are a creative industry. This word has been pronounced many times already, and I think that we will pronounce it over and over and over again. This is what makes this industry so exciting. We always need to be not only innovative, technically speaking, but creative in terms of cultural proposal that our games are making to the audience that is looking for new stuff to be entertained by. So this is just this dialogue between what has been done in the past and what we think would be the trend for the future. And we are defining the trend. We as the authors, the publishers, the creative guys, we are making the future.
Peter, would you like to reflect on what was said?
Yeah, sure. What we can see basically compared to previous years is like it always costs more money to develop a good game and takes more time. Maybe it's because we are increasing the quality and trying to make it better and better games. But I think it's also like globally because all these kind of like events which are happening here in the world. And it seems like simply it costs more. People are getting more expensive. It takes more time. So this is definitely something which we can see with all our games. And what we are missing in the portfolio, actually, we are always like looking for the people who are talented and who really are like in love with their product and what they are doing, so that they really put all the passion. And that doesn't really matter about the project. It's we are more looking into the people and into the teams in the future. So it could be basically any game, really. But it has to be produced like with the heart, to say, so that the people love it and they want to create something special which stands out of the crowd, and that basically defines the product itself. And if all this fits into the place and is supported, of course, by PR and all this kind of stuff, then it has a good chance for success. And then you can do like then you have the best chances, and that's my opinion.
Thank you, Bertrand. Maybe I'm just going to expand the question and kind of pick up on the topic of risks. So beyond the trends that you see in the pipeline, what sort of risks are, kind of the biggest risks that right now the developers are now facing, and how can they actually de-risk these projects when pitching to publishers and investors?
I think that's like a $1 million question, if I'm honest. I think everybody tries to mitigate risk. As as an investor, you can control the outcomes. It just, nobody can. Hollywood can't. The game industry cannot. A lot of other industries are facing the same. So what you can control is processes. So when you take a look at a project, it's basically twofold, right? Well, we see it as twofold. It's either aligned on what you see as, potentially the mega trend on the market, what Simon and Benoit have been talking about, but more importantly, the execution on that vision. Is it going to be, good or not? Is it going to be bad? Because this is basically, constantly changing. So you can execute well on an idea, and when you have done this execution, which is the development time, maybe the market has changed, by the time it gets there. Or, you can execute badly on a good idea, and then regardless of how aligned the market or not is, the game is not going to flow well. So what we try to do is to focus first on processes. If you release a great game, on the market that is not well aligned, for instance, when Hades, made its full release, Focus was also, pushing a very decent game that had similarities to Hades, but, Hades was just a better game. It was just an exceptional title, and it didn't make the game from Focus any worse. It just didn't make it the number one because we're in a hit-driven industry. So regardless, of the risk that you take, I guess it's all about two things: executing well, and then just having luck in getting on a market that is ready for your product.
Maybe if I can add here, just a small thing, because we've been testing a lot of games for different VCs or publishers that we're looking to evaluate different companies. It's mostly because we have a lot of let's say experience with measuring, and we can compare in practically all the genres on the free-to-play market, what are the successes. Of course, it's harder to do in PC console world because the amount of data is not so large, but we always first is in free-to-play world, the game mechanics themselves, an experienced game and economy designer can just look at the design sheets and can predict what is the, let's say, monetization potential of the game, and at the same time, you need to be able to market the game efficiently. And currently, I'm very happy that this trend has been growing, but every game looking to get on the market should be doing some rounds of marketability testing, where they essentially create mock ads and just run them to see what's the audience interaction, to select the proper art style for it, and just measure whether the market has the interest, at least at this point in time.
So apart from that, are you seeing any trends in the gaming on the macro level when it comes to let's say business models or type of games that are getting traction nowadays? Or is it really about the creativity as mentioned before? Jakub, I just...
Okay, it's for me. Okay, fine.
Then I will give you a chance.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing right now is there are always these cycles in free-to-play industry, which is games that are made to have to be very accessible, to be very simple and easily marketable, and they essentially attract new audiences into the gaming, mostly hyper casual games. And then when they prove some sort of core gameplay models or create audiences for these new types of gameplay, then there is another step in the cycle where all these companies are trying to build on these new proven core gameplay and add some mid-core mechanics or mechanics that make sense for players to invest more time and money into these games. So it's always finding out new marketable models and then improving on them and their monetization systems. And
Benoit, you wanted to follow up on that?
Yeah, sure. There is a big trend that I'm not teaching anything to anyone, but the cloud gaming is definitely something that is coming out, and this both a big change in terms of tech, in terms of usage, in terms of monetization, the kind of things that we've been going through in the past in our industry and many other industries that usually do change a lot of things. So how will be the change? What will be the dominant business model in 5-10 years when the 5G will be everywhere? What will be the big players in this field? No one knows, but it will definitely shake the industry and change it.
Thank you. Maybe Martin, you'd like to expand on this topic?
Yeah, I pretty much have the least experience investing in this space, just to be completely honest, but I see the many similarities, as also the Jakub mentioned, like to do kind of, I would say, a pre-testing of the concept, like the checking the graphics, how it will be received, like maybe even what kind of story will be. Maybe I will go as much further, but to create a very, let's say, a pilot game, which will just go, let's say, one chapter or something like that, and just to get the taste of the feedback. Because regardless of investment, the traction is a king, but the traction of the current model is the biggest king. And to be very, very efficient in the financing is very important. So basically, as we're doing in the normal VC or normal project development, like basically you're starting a small investment, get feedback as soon as you can, make a very quick decision to say, okay, this is go or no go. I'm going to pour more money, more resources. As also Peter mentioned, like the cost of development, regardless of everything, it just goes up. I used to be a developer for 12 years, and I know it's just very hard, those people. So again, the winner will be company who can create the best environment for the people, give them the most creative juice, and they will just go out and testing the concept until something will hit a jackpot. So I see very, very nice similarities for me, and I'm kind of hoping to also to investing quite soon because for me it's more investing in the game studio itself than the specific project, and then let them to grow. So I can be a partner, let's say with Peter, where I can money his knowledge and do it together. So maybe overshoot a little bit.
Yeah, maybe an interesting follow-up question to that would be, if there are any changes in terms of how funding is being delivered to these projects, reflecting the kind of changing environment.
Yes, that's very interesting. The VC itself, it's crazy stubborn. So the exit potential is not there in the first place. The VC will basically run on opposite side. There is definitely the change of environment, but I think it's very slow, especially like, in Central Europe where we are based, pretty much only funds invest.
Yeah,
not investors. Really, like I saw some people who invest in the game development or game industry was pretty much just people who love the industry. They usually mostly invested their own money. So it's very, very hard to say the investment. It was even investment, it's not donation. So I don't see many players. Pretty much with my project, I will be maybe one of the first who are going for like project investment, which means the game development is a very good fit to it. But around that, I just don't see anyone who invests in Central Europe in game development professionally.
I was just going to say as well that I think that investment is difficult, but I think that certainly in the UK, because obviously I know a lot about the UK and Western Europe, learning as much as I can about everywhere, but I really know a lot about the UK and I've met a lot of developers in the UK. So one trend that I am beginning to notice is that game developers that sold their companies a few years ago are now beginning to invest in new companies. So I used to work for the Oliver twins at Blitz Games in England, as an example, because I know them quite well. They have started their digital game dragons, I think it's called, Game Dragons. Digital Dragons is a conference, isn't it? Game Dragons, where they invest in games and technology companies. So they sold Blitz Games and got out of that, and they're using some of that money to invest in companies. And I think there's a couple of companies as well that have been doing that recently, and so that seems to be more of a trend. I've been waiting for it to happen for a long time. You know, that's how Silicon Valley happened, isn't it? You know,
yeah, there is one thing, one piece of the story, which it's like even Silicon Valley run on the government money.
Yeah, and Xerox. A lot of people made money from Xerox, didn't they? And then Xerox.
Yeah, but if you look on the trend of venture capital, like now, if you're in Europe, 70% of the funds is government cash, and government cash is very, very stubborn, very strict.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm even convincing the institutional investors to kind of like a little bit open the mind about flexible financing, like something which is not completely clear cut from beginning, something which is a little bit more flexible, adaptable. And this is like you know, if you're looking on the guys really investing, like, you know, EIF, LGT, and pretty much unknown companies for the general public, and they have billions to put in SME business, which is basically small company. They're very, very rigid, and you know, there is then my job or job only all the portfolio managers to figure out a product which we can sell to them, and they need to be very clear and very easy. And especially like project financing is very hard to present in like a large scale. So yes, the trend when you have a circulation of the knowledge and the money, it's amazing, because this is the kicker. I don't think we have many of those yet, but it's really good to basically tell them, okay, maybe you can then, you know, with your help can go to the big guys and institutional investors and pension funds and say, yeah, this is the industry which can generate returns, have a good impact on community, will generate jobs, like, you know, support us as well. It's not happened yet. I know even many funds have a kind of like a ban on the entertainment industry, because they just don't understand it.
Yeah, I think that's why sort of like the gaming investment landscape is very much separated from the traditional VC. And sort of like now similar to kind of the crypto markets, right? Like living their own life kind of thing, even though they're kind of connected. And, you know, like, I think this is also good segue towards Bertrand, because your fund, if I understand correctly, you're more on the like VC model side, but really focusing on gaming. And is there anything like very specific in your model as a VC, why it's more suitable to fund games?
Yeah, well, I actually had the conversation earlier with the Spielfabrik in Germany with Berlin-based VCs. You know, equity is very well adapted to tech, and you know, holding the hand of a company as it grows, you know, throughout different stages. And a game studio, when we started investing, was, you know, 2 years ago, it was like, well, what are the stages of a game studio? And, you know, a studio can make a first game, and then, you know, this game either doesn't sell or it sells, and then they move on to a second game, and, you know, they can have, you know, again, limited success or tremendous success. So for us, it made sense to first do project financing. So we don't invest first in equity, we invest in a project. And because we first, you know, it's kind of like dating, right? Equity is getting married, and cash is dating, right? So you basically, I'm not gonna say, you know, you test the bride, but in a way you do, you know, right? So before things get serious, you test the waters, and you see them execute well on the project. You know, you put cash in a project, so it's not like you got equity, you can sit back. You need to watch them execute, and you need to get to know the team. And as people who now fund productions, we try to connect them, you know, be it with first parties, be it, you know, with, you know, a great QA company, or, you know, with a good PR agency. So we don't have an executive producer, but we are going to try to help them use the cash the best they can. Now, you know, that's for self-published titles. Sometimes, you know, we have teams, and right from the get-go, we have projects, and we're like, okay, you're not going to be able to do this on your own, right? You need a publisher. Your team is not built for this. Even if you try to go with self-publishing, we're telling you you won't be able to. So sometimes it works. There is publishers that we work with already, announced. There's other publishers that we signed with, for co-investment that's not yet announced. And those publishers want to de-risk those productions, right? Productions that are like $2, $3, $4, $5 million. Then, when we like what the team has done, we can then, make a second investment, in this time in equity. And obviously, as an investor, it makes sense for you to first test the waters and allow yourself a subscription right, or preemption right on the cap table with a specific valuation. And if you're smart, I would advise you to have a lower valuation, or not a market valuation, but one with a discount, so that you secure upside right off the bat. So it's like a middle, a business model that's in between. It's flexible because we can work with publishers. We work with publishers. We sometimes do not work with publishers when the team is experienced enough, or the team has a plan, or they have very early KPIs. If a self-published indie team comes to us, it's the case right now. They have like 180,000 wish list, and for an indie team, 7-people team, you're like, wow, that's incredible. Wish lists are not sales, so then you need also to make sure that they're not overselling their game, and that there is substance behind their promise. But if they're they have a plan and you feel you're comfortable with it, you can go with it. So that's what we try to do. We try to get teams the best fit, and if we feel they can do it alone with us with cash, then we do it. And if we feel they need a publisher, then we advise them to find one, basically. We help with the process. It's easy to find a publisher when you have $1 million funded for your development and you need 300,000 in marketing, right? So
yeah, I just want to add a little bit, because the problem is, like, what you do, you usually probably have your capital or flexible capital, because what the institutional investor there cannot think like, we test waters and then do equity, because then for them you are debt fund and equity fund, two funds, conflict of interest, everything wrong. And that's pretty much the reason, like the institutional money just doesn't work if you want to test waters. They want to basically for you commit or to be a lender.
Yeah, sure. I mean, having your own money has its own perks, I guess. So we can adapt to the life cycle of a studio. But it's true that at some point you need to choose. There is going to be debt funding to a certain point, and we have the case right now where it's getting serious for a studio, and there is an extremely big company wants to enter the cap table, and it's just not compatible with debt funding. You're absolutely right. This is why I said dating and then getting married. Usually you don't date again after getting married. I don't know, some people are weird, so sometimes they do it, right? But it's the same with debt funding and equity. It's either there's first debt and then equity, but if there's first equity and then debt, it's usually not a good.
No, it will be interesting to go a little bit more in the debt and how to do it right for these companies, because many times the debt is really dating, because it's a clear cut, there is no operational. So you basically, if you don't like each other, you just don't do equity, but you still can basically leave at the table with your dignity. So as your lender, with your money, as a company, you survived. Because there is equity and you have marriage crisis, then it's very, very hard to just leave the table.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we try to be flexible. There at the beginning there's debt financing, then they can be debt financing jointly with the publisher, and then there is equity rounds, right? If it gets serious, that's basically how it scales up.
Look, guys, most developers, certainly most indie game developers, they want money, but they don't want equity. They're not interested in that side of the business. They just want to make their games. They want, really they want an angel publisher to come in and fund the game, which is what we do, what Benoit does. We fund their games for them. So, equity is really interesting, but certainly for indie developers, some of them are ambitious. Some of them might have a plan. I spoke to someone recently, yesterday even, that said that they had a plan to be acquired in the medium term, but they think more about acquisition than they do about equity investment. So they would rather sell to Sony or Team17 or whoever than consider equity investment. So it's a difficult thing to get that into the mindset of an indie developer. I think equity is a perfectly reasonable way of funding your business, but it's very difficult to get indies on board with that.
What is the current funding environment like in gaming industry? Is it more like money chasing deals? And sometimes the VC market, when it gets overheated, there's way too many funds, and basically you get a term sheet and the founders say like, well, you have 24 hours to make your decision. Either you're in or you're out. Like really money chasing deal scenario. Or some markets are really opposite, where there's really not that much funding and a lot of interesting projects.
It's very different with publisher funding to equity funding. So, people pitch us games, we find games, we look at games online, we find them on Twitter, we approach developers and say, hey, that's a cool thing. I mean, really, we want people to come to us as soon as possible. We want games before they go on Twitter, because we don't want our competitors to see them. So we want people to come to Team17 first. And that's a reputation building exercise that we need to do. So people come to us with their cool games first, and we can sign them. That gives our competitive advantage. But I mean, if I've been an indie developer, I've worked for massive companies like Codemasters and Sony, and then an indie developer with my own company, and then just decided to do something different because it's difficult funding your own company. Once you want to think about employing people, you have to have a level of security there. So for me to go from one person, basically a one-person indie developer who got quite a big game made and funded by Sony, to then say, how do I get investment? I mean, I had a game that was funded by Sony and it did okay. And it's still difficult to get, to get money. From publishers, it's all about the idea and the delivery. From investors, it is about the team, as Martin said already. It is very much about the team and where that is going in the future. And you have to have a plan, whether you're making games or whether you're making, electric cars or whatever your plan is for the future, you need to have a plan. But the funding environment at the moment for games is, I obviously know a lot about indie games because that's what we work on, AA sort of stuff as well. But yeah, it's difficult to get that. I mean, the one thing I did want to mention, was that it's difficult to get that initial funding for a game. Mm-hmm. So there aren't many funds that will give you 100,000 euros for a game. I'm more likely to be able to go to Martin and get €1 million than I am 100,000 euros, because people, investors want to do big investments. They don't, with a smaller amount of companies, they don't want to throw lots of small amounts of money and have to manage that with people. So I'm more, I was making some web games with my company previously. I was making very small games for a very small amount of money, and it was the same amount of effort to make that and service that deal and that relationship as it was to make $1 million game for Sony. So I decided to go and make some $1 million games instead.
So what are the best sources for these sort of first checks? Can you guys recommend either your own companies or some other sources of the most difficult funding to be found? Maybe Benoit?
Government. I mean, first farm. Yeah, I mean, just look at the ecosystem. Now in Germany you have the BMVI, in France you have the BPI, in Canada you have CMF FMC, in Germany you have Creative Europa. Those guys are more prone to give you funding for your first game. They will be strict, but you can get a shot. Other than that, I think if you want funding from Simon or Benoit or any publisher, I would assume you need a pretty compelling playable, and it's tough sometimes for certain teams to set, to make something compelling, without any kind of funding. So I would definitely first try to go to government, because they can be more prone to listen to you, even though you don't have necessarily a compelling playable.
And they are free, right? So I mean, it's free money just lying there.
Maybe Peter, are you aware of any programs in CE that are targeting, let's say, creative industries? And
we have creative fund, like Slovakian in the Art Council. There is a specific fund just for creating of interactive games. And there is a like maximum 100K in investment. But combined, it could be like 160, maybe 200, up to 200K, which is quite okay, especially considering how small Slovakia is. And other than that, Creative Europe, it's for the entire EU system. And other than that, I'm sure in Poland there would be some similar support programs as well, but I'm not know the details.
Yeah, I think this is a great advice for the developers and a great hack for fundraising. Maybe Benoit, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I think that this is not super difficult currently to find money, at least as seed money, in order to start the funding of a prototype. It has been mentioned by Bertrand, Simon also, I think, either from private money, but most importantly from the government subsidies that are available everywhere, from 100 to 100,000 euros, depending on the country, to Canada, where this is above 1 million Canadian dollars that you can get from the FMC, the Fonds des Médias du Canada. So if you are serious, if you know your job, this is the most important thing. Do you have a past experience that do allow you to present a team and a project that do make sense in the market, that do have that is a real project, to say it simply, then you can find money. What I would maybe insist more on is that, of course, money to finance the production is very important, but we as publisher, what we are bringing to the table is not only the money, definitely not. I got 70 persons working behind me that are producers, QA managers, community managers, product managers. They are all managers of something, PR managers. So they are bringing market expertise. They are bringing compliance expertise when it comes to console, QA expertise, promotion, of course, of various categories and sorts through any medias. And this is, as a developer, what really I think you should be looking for more than really the capacity of funding that a publisher can bring on the table. What are the services that the publishing partner that you will commit with is able to provide to your product to make it a success, both on the development side, during the production, and when it comes to the release and the post-release, which is more and more important nowadays. We're not talking about just launching a game and then leave it alone, but what will be also the muscles of the other publishing body in order to help you get the big long tail when it comes to the sales. Also, I got sales manager that they would be unhappy if they see the video and I'm not mentioning them. This is super important, of course, to have them on board.
So I have a whole presentation with what Benoit was just talking about. I have a whole presentation that I go through developers, this presentation about what Team17 can offer to you and how we can help you produce, test, sell, market your game. Everything QA, usability, sales, and we talk about how we can do Game Pass deals and how we can, on top of funding, obviously we can fund things. That's what Benoit was saying, but we can do other stuff as well. Can I just say, in relation to Slovakia and the government funding as well, which I think is really interesting. So feedback from a publisher, if I see that a game has got some funding from the government, that makes me pay attention. So if, as many people have mentioned on this call already, to get that money is quite difficult. You have to fill in a lot of application forms. You have to talk to the government. So there is a level of government scrutiny on that application. So if you come to me and say, Martin's nodding, hopefully he's agreeing with me, but if you come to me and say, I've got money from the government, even if it's 20,000 euros, that I know you have been through some process to get that money. So it makes me think, oh, they have something there. They have something that we should pay attention to. It might not be the greatest game, but they have organization to do that and do that application. And so I recommend, if you can, even get a small amount of money. It looks good to publishers.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely right. It's good if you can go through the scrutiny. Will not be that fund on the creative part of the government to choose. Yeah, so you basically need to fill the gaps and basically create your presentation towards the government grants. Of course, it's better because you definitely show your commitment, because those grants are just not easy to get. The conversion ratio is small, but you just definitely show you are serious. Even if you get 20K and let's say, you gave up your job and you just basically go full on for 2 or 3 months of development, even you will produce like, I don't want to crappy, but let's say the suboptimal product. But the commitment, I think, among of the entrepreneurs, because that's what you are an entrepreneur. If you are a game developer, you're just basically building something from scratch, you create a unique value. So it's very important for us as investors to basically show, I have a commitment, I have a skin in the game. This is not a hobby sidekick, which I just do for fun, just basically show us a commitment. And I think it's very, very big plus.
Right. We're slowly running out of time. And I think like we should turn the page a little bit towards more, let's say, your predictions towards the next year and the future. And I would like to, briefly talk about, the technology trends and how they are shaping the gaming industry. Jakub already mentioned NFTs, but, probably there are also other trends that are shaping the industry. So maybe Jakub, you'd like to start and tell us your view on this topic.
Yes, thank you for the question. I just got off of Q&A on Nordic Game just before this a panel discussion about my talk was about NFTs and why I think that this is indeed a very important technology for gaming industry is because it resonates so strongly with the players. So it's such a strong selling point for the players to see that they can get some sort of part of their investment into the games back, especially for free-to-play games, but also it goes to the Steam and the Steam marketplace and applications like that. Up until now, if you were a player, you could like put in like thousands of hours and tens of thousands of euros into these games, and you know that you're never getting any of that back. With NFTs, it's a kind of a different relationship that players can commit much stronger to the games. They can rationalize much higher investment into the in-game items and the digital goods because they know that if the need arises or if they move on to another game, they can find buyers for these items and they can go through the tough times in the real life, or maybe they will earn something, or they will at least get back part of their investment and be able to move on to the other game. So this is like part of the whole revolution of like, yeah, digital goods also have some value, and it's very, very attractive for the players from the marketing perspective.
Can I ask a kind of a sort of a devil's advocate question here? So, like the gaming items, they always had value, right? I mean, they've been traded on different platforms, centralized platforms. What is the value proposition of NFTs? Because basically, in my view, you're putting sort of a signature on a decentralized platform, but this signature relates to an object that lives on a centralized platform. So what's the value of proposition of that beyond sort of like being liquid and being tradable on exchanges, let's say?
That's a very good question. Like of course, like Steam Marketplace like fulfills some of these functions, but I think exactly the effect of being liquid and tradable and having like kind of this feeling of true ownership, whether it's real or not, of the NFTs is I think this is the main point, that if you invest something that you are actually able to like get back something, or if you're really good, for example, at some games and you can win some tournaments like monthly or something, that you can get an item that you can trade, like not going on eBay, posting it there and getting scammed, but like really trade or brag about it because it's part of your inventory. I think that is something that's very attractive. And so for the developers, it's of course like harder than it was before, because players give players the opportunity to take their money out of the ecosystem and move somewhere else if we do something badly or if we upset the community, which will of course like lower the value of the remaining assets. But on the other hand, it has been shown that that games that introduce some sort of NFTs, even if in a very limited manner, it was able to motivate the players to invest much more time and money into the games.
So this is more about like primarily this is another purchasing motivation, right? So it's like psychology that they are buying something more than just if they would be just buying.
It's more like these trading card games, really, like Magic the Gathering. You know, like I would never buy like a normal playing cards for like €1,000, but I know several people who in fact like rationalized like buying Magic the Gathering cards for thousands of euros, and they still have them at home, even though, and they will never probably sell them, even though they could potentially.
And maybe a follow-up question on this topic is the sort of emerging trend of play-to-earn model. Any ideas about that? I think it's very hard to ignore the revenue Axie Infinity has been generated in the past months. Anyone would like to react to that?
Just very quickly, and I hope someone else will also come in. But for me, play-to-earn model has a big problem, which is sustainability, and which is also what the founder of SkyMavis, the company behind Axie Infinity, is saying. And that is, if players play the game primarily to earn money, that's essentially a problem, because you can only pay them back, or they can only get money that other players put in, right? So the biggest challenge here is to make it something like a play and earn, or like primarily play and like retain some of your investment motivation, not just like blatantly say that, yeah, come here, if you pay 100, so you will definitely have 200 in next month. So games should be primarily, even with NFTs, should be about being fun and engaging in the long term, and incentivize players that if they buy something in the game, to keep it there, the investment, and just with an option or freedom to maybe trade it later.
Yeah, we are lucky, like we are creating more console and PC games where this is like less of an issue, this monetization aspect, and it's more about like we are really focusing more on the gameplay experience rather than like the motivation and the monetization behind it. So it's quite a different philosophy behind the entire development.
So anyone else would like to talk about maybe different technologies that are kind of changing the landscape? We have, maybe the last few minutes.
And I think that
sorry, go Simon.
I was just going to say, I think that there's some interesting stuff happening in VR. I think we have to acknowledge that Facebook have rebranded to Meta, and their push into this metaverse. I refuse to say it any other way. Metaverse. We'll see how it goes. But they're putting a lot of money into it. They've put a lot of money into Oculus. They've funded games. They've kept Oculus going. Some people thought that they might get bored and move on to something else, but they've doubled down on VR, and they're not really calling it VR. They're calling it the metaverse, and that's expanding it beyond VR. Because are we getting AR? Are we getting different forms of virtual reality? So I think that's really interesting. There's the PlayStation 5, as everyone knows. PlayStation 5 VR is on the horizon. When that's going to come out, that will be a big deal. A couple more VR headsets were announced recently before Facebook made their announcement. So I think VR is still happening. I think that some people are making good amounts of money from VR games. And I think that we shouldn't, I'm not saying people should put all their money into VR, but I think we should remember it's there, it's a thing, and it's happening, and it might be getting bigger. We should watch it and get involved.
Thanks, Simon. I think we can call this also like a round of final remarks. So, Benoit.
Yeah, just a quick addition. I already mentioned it, but I think that the next big thing that definitely all of us should really keep an eye on is, of course, the cloud gaming, as this is something that is coming in, and the 5G will be really dispatched everywhere. It will take time. Those are massive investments, so this is not for tomorrow, not for next year, not maybe for the year after, maybe 5-10 years, because we see something that is really a big market, but it will change a lot of things. It will change the business model. It will change and blur the lines when it comes to the screen on which we are playing. Today, we are making a difference between mobile games and console games and PC games. Tomorrow with the 5G, I will play Call of Duty on my mobile. So this technology is screen agnostic when it works properly. The business models that we are talking about with Microsoft, with Google Stadia, with Luna, Amazon, with tomorrow Netflix, are to be defined. Even at big exec position in those big companies, no one really knows how the revenue will be shared, where really the revenue will come. Of course, they have ideas, but ideas that are coming from the models that are the movie models and the music models that are the other creative industry that have been impacted by this tech of capacity to stream content. But maybe those models will not work properly for the game industry. So it will really, just like the digitalization of our industry in the past 10 years, changed a lot the landscape and our patterns and our mindset and the way we exploit our games and we make money out of them. This next big technology will be also a super important change.
Mm-hmm. Call of Duty in AR, I think that would be quite interesting.
NFTs.
With NFTs, yeah, all around the place. Peter, closing remarks and maybe thoughts about the technology shifts?
Yeah, well, I still dream of the implants, so this is something which is happening and perhaps coming maybe in my lifetime. So I see this as the biggest kind of jump, because what we are talking now is still basically the same system, but it's kind of if once we have the implants and we can kind of do a different type of controls, then it creates something entirely new, diverse experience. So this is my kind of hope that I will live long enough to kind of see this shift. So this is my kind of vision for the biggest.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Adoption curves are getting steeper every day. So
yes.
Likely. Martin, your closing thoughts, remarks?
Yeah, for the technology, I think I wouldn't mention metaverse as well. I'm not sure if it's buzz or increment. I have more feeling it's more increment than the new revelation. I think the Peter's implants will be more like jump.
Do you see the metaverse as just like basically a VR world, like interconnected, all the games interconnected?
Yeah,
or
but
much more beyond that, like
they didn't really fix the like to be in that space. The metaverse basically saying you cannot travel because of COVID, so be here. I'm more happy. No. Can I have a drink? Have beer with you? No. I will more see the jumps. I would rather see a more developed ecosystem where the games will little bit meet the enterprise. As basically we see a gamification go to enterprise, encourage engagement. This will be something which I would like to see, a small encouraging games to help people to learn, to be more empathetic to the co-workers over Zoom calls. This will be really the merging, because I not really found to be the innovation happens when three different things stretch to each other. That's something what I'm hoping to be more interconnected. Thank you.
Jakub?
yeah, I don't have much to add. I just recently read the book Snow Crash that was like where the term metaverse was used first and imagined. And I agree that currently, like I have high hopes for this. I think that we are moving in this direction and everyone is just like trying to find when is the time. Like we're not sure. We'll probably get there, but no one knows when. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I also really, I'm wary about the current projects in the NFT space and in the crypto space. It's like a lot of them will fail for sure, but the technology is here to stay, and it's like for the developers and publishers to find a way how to leverage it for their benefit and for the benefit of the players mostly. And I guess that's it. And I'm also looking forward to the implants. Maybe then the virtual beer will taste how it's supposed to.
Thank you. Bertrand, your closing remarks?
Yeah, well, that escalated quickly into
Yeah.
transhumanism. That's very interesting. No, well, you know, as a private investor, I don't try to forecast. I more like try to, you know, get with the flow. I think regardless of how content is consumed, whether it's like in total recall, you know, whatever, I'm more focused on what do people want to consume rather than how. I think how is like for bigger pockets than me, but you know, anything between 1 to 5 million per project, that's my game, and that's what I focus on, you know. And however people want to have that, you know, be my guest, you know, I'll try to fund it.
Thank you so much, guys. So unfortunately, we ran out of time. I mean, I could discuss with you another 2 hours. We just opened a lot of new topics, more and more. It's really, you know, we went down the rabbit hole quite a bit. So, you know, thank you so much for attending, and maybe see you next year at the Game Days conference.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Hope to
Bye.
see
Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you
Thank
soon.
you. Bye bye.